Hey baddies, it's Dom, and we have another amazing Tuesday treasure for you this episode. It is Moriah McNutt. Moriah gives us her testimony that talks about her broken marriage and multiple failed businesses. Just like we talked about in Ecclesiastes, truly everything under the sun is like chasing the wind, and it only drives you closer to God. Please stay tuned with us in this incredible redemptive story on forgiveness and pursuing God. If you or someone you know would love to be a Tuesday treasure and come on the podcast, please reach us at BibleBaddies.com. Enjoy the episode. What is up, Bible Baddies? It's your girl, Dom.
And Audra.
And today we have a lovely Tuesday treasure, Moriah. Welcome, Moriah.
Hello. Thank you. I'm so excited.
We are so excited to have you. So, Moriah is currently in Florida, is that right?
Yes, Jacksonville, Florida.
Ooh, I lived there a little while ago.
Did you?
Yes, it was my first job out of college. I moved to Jacksonville, and I was working for a company called Ernst & Young. I was only there for a year, but I enjoyed my time. Yeah.
I was going to say, did you love it? Because I will never leave, I don't think.
Yeah. No, I loved it. I actually lived in Riverside, and it was booming at the time. Like, it was kind of getting more hip and cool to live in Riverside. And I rode bikes to downtown and to the baseball games, the Gumbo Shrimp. And it was a lot of fun.
Wow.
Yeah, I enjoyed my time.
When was this?
I want to say 2018, 2019.
Oh, okay. Wow. So we've got more connections than we think. I mean, not really, but
the world really is small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And I'm a Florida girl, so I was like born and raised in Tampa anyway. So I'm like, ooh, like when Audra's like, hey, I have this awesome girl coming on the pod, I was like, oh, Florida girl, absolutely.
Yes, we love her already.
Yes. Automatic.
Well, I'm not originally from Florida, and so, but I totally am a Florida girly at this point. People ask me if I ever want to move back home, and I'm like, nope, I'm good, thanks.
I'm good. Where's back home?
Indiana.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we're not going back to the 6-month cold. So we're not.
That's how I am. I'm from Southern Illinois, and I'm like never going back. Okay. I like to visit, but never going back.
Okay, I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Well, why don't you take us into kind of your time there and how you got to Florida then?
Okay, yeah. So I've been in Jacksonville for 3 years now, November 2021. Originally from Indiana, like I said, very small town, about 30,000 people in my town. Our whole county is 60,000. So moving to Jacksonville was a huge difference. We went from driving 45 minutes to the nearest Target to everything's around you. But as you know, Dom, Jacksonville's freaking ginormous. Mm-hmm. You still have to drive everywhere, but you do have everything right there. So that, I don't want to say a culture shock, but it was definitely different. And I am literally terrible at directions. So you put me in the largest town in the States, and it's here, figure out your way around everywhere. And seriously, if I did not have GPS, I do not know how I would survive in this place.
Yeah.
It's just ginormous. But yeah, so originally from Indiana, I guess with my story, I can just start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Small town, like I said, small church, grew up in the church all my life. And I married my high school, really honestly, junior high sweetheart. And we got married at 19. And we were, very involved in our church. He was on the worship team. I was serving kids, very, very involved. That was 2018 when we got married. And about COVID time was super hard on us, very social people. And then when COVID, back in Indiana, it was pretty strict stay-at-home order. We could not go to church. We couldn't go anywhere. I don't know. People always joke that in Florida, it was nobody had a stay-at-home order.
Yeah. There's memes about it.
Yeah. So I don't know. People in Indiana were having meetups in the parking lot. So because it was forbidden to see anybody. And so that was really hard. And so we stopped going to church for that reason. And we got really, really comfortable not going anywhere, not going to church. That was a hard time on my husband at the time too, just like mentally, emotionally, all the things. But I am Enneagram 3, a busy bee. I like to check off my tasks and I like to be busy and always working on new projects and all these things. And so basically right before COVID, I'm a photographer, and back in our little hometown, there's not a whole lot to do. And then we're mixing COVID with it. And so I had a friend or a girl reach out. She had just moved back into town. She was originally from there. She kind of lived all over beforehand, but they just moved back. She was a hair and makeup artist. And so she was like, hey, I am looking for a photographer to work with. Do you want to do some like styled shoots or just some projects? And so that was about 2 months or so before COVID kickstarted. She came home with her 4th baby. We were just at home and we were like, hey, do you want to start a business together? Basically how it happened over COVID. And it really just kickstarted. Eventually we had bridal business together. We were doing hair and makeup, photo, video. Then it turned into she wanted a salon, and it turned into, hey, let's have a boutique with it. And so very, very quickly, it turned into an online boutique. We were doing all the things. We were driving to Atlanta. We were getting all the clothes. We were making an online business. We were doing all the branding. I was taking all the pictures. We were driving to Florida to do content because we started this thing basically in the winter of Indiana. And you can't take pictures of clothes in like 40-degree weather. Like nobody wants to do that. So we were doing road trips to Florida to do content. It was just very quickly, I was a lot of money into this business. And eventually, I would say summer of 2021, my business partner was like, hey, I think I want to move back to Florida. I was like, okay.
Oh, no.
I was $30,000 into this business, and
gosh.
I was, what was this, 2-3 years into my marriage, and I was like, we have a choice. We can move and we can take a risk and we can trust that the Lord's going to provide and we can do that thing, or we can stay here in our comfortability and wonder what if. And so I had never lived anywhere but my small town. He had, but never outside of Indiana really. And so I would say before my past season, I was never like a go get 'em, do new things, get out of your comfort zone kind of girl. And so this was a huge, huge sacrifice for me. And so we went, I've never been to Jacksonville, Florida in my life at that point. I was blindly just trusting my business partner because I did not want to lose out on my $30,000 investment at this point. I just wanted to trust that what she was saying was okay. And we were going to get through and we were going to be successful. And so that's what we did. So we moved to Jacksonville, Florida. Don't know anybody anywhere other than my business partner's family. She had 4 kids and it was just me, my husband, our dog, and their family, nobody else. And so that was my only circle for a very long time. We moved first thing. We opened a storefront. We had 3 months of build out. It was, I mean, you can imagine just the 2 of us were the only ones doing the build out. Multiple nights of just there at the store till 3 a.m. painting the ceiling and painting the walls and drawing murals and cleaning the everything and organizing stuff and finding decor. And it was a lot of work and it took us 3 months. And then we finally opened our doors and we had 2 storefronts at this point. And it was very quickly, I realized I hate this. Retail is not for me. And I just keep remembering like all I wanted to do was take pictures. Like that's really all I wanted to do. And quickly I realized I don't know what I'm doing. I have just blindly said okay to a lot of things, just trusting that my business partner was going to hold us all together. I would honestly, I've never been one to struggle with mental health at all. but I would assume that I probably had a very like functional depression at this point. And we were only open for about a month and a half. There was coding issues with our building based on the person that was there before us. And we were basically forced to close our doors, but we were still having to pay on our building, which was crazy. And so we were like, okay, we have to close our store that's making no money, but we still have to make money. How are we going to do this? So then we shifted our business. We did a branding business. And so this is again, like our fourth or fifth business at this time. And it's like, it's just a never ending cycle of like, we cannot catch up. I was in business with her for 4 years and I never took a paycheck. Wow. It was exhausting. And you can imagine if I'm working a storefront nearly 5-6 days a week, when am I making money for my family to pay my bills? And so I was working 17-hour days and I was trying to find my own clients to pay my bills for photography purposes. And so it was just very, very hard, not on just me, but my marriage also at home. I felt like I was never home. On top of that, she had 4 kids. And so none of us were making money. And so she couldn't pay for childcare. And so while she was doing hair, I was watching the 4 kids and it was a lot. I quickly turned into their nanny, their aunt. I mean, I was taking them to doctor's appointments and school and basketball practices and parks and literally everything. It was just a whole dynamic that was never meant for me. Mm-hmm. And it was just so tolling on everything. We're in Jacksonville for 2 years now and my marriage is failing at home. There had been, on one account, I had caught my husband cheating emotionally. On another account, I caught him on OnlyFans. And then it turns into November of 2023. He asks me for a divorce. And I do not know what to do. I just like started freaking out because at this point you have to realize we had been in Florida for 2 years. We had tried like 2 churches and then just decided it's not working out because he was working retail at the time and I was working so much and we didn't necessarily like the churches that we had gone to and we just kind of gave up. And when he asked me for this divorce, I did not know what else to do other than to get my butt in church. Mm-hmm. I would never say that I lost my faith. I had made my job, my business partner, my status of my bank account. I had made all of that my little g God and not the Lord. I remember feeling so desperate that it was like survival mode. I had to go to church. And so I turned into one morning my amazing, amazing church, 1122. And I remember it was just, the world was against me. It was pouring down rain. It was just a gloomy day. I feel like crap because my whole world is falling apart. And this is the crazy thing is the first service that I ever went to, they started their mental health series. And they said eventually in the service, they were like, we have resources on our website for faith-based counselors. And so from that, I got plugged in with my therapist at the time. And it was just, the Lord knows what you need at the exact time that you need it. Yeah. And here I was starting to go to church. That kind of kickstarted the divorce time. I was working so hard to fight for my marriage, even though he had been unfaithful for so long. And I just did not want to fail marriage. It sucks to say, but like it was the failure portion for me that I didn't want. And it wasn't preserving my marriage, and all the stigma around divorce too. But really, I was trying so hard. So with the divorce, gosh, it's a whole story and a half. But let's see, I basically told him I am going to Indiana for Christmas. I don't want to be here during the holidays. I am boarding the dog we're, bye Felicia, you can't have him while I'm gone. And while I'm gone, you're going to move out everything. Because at this point I had found out about, he had already been in a relationship a month prior to when he asked me for the divorce. And so I'm gone in Indiana. I'm there for 10 days. And day 3 of my trip, I got the flu and a fever. And I had a fever and the flu for 7 days over Christmas. And then I come home and I told him, you have a week to get your stuff out and I want you to be gone by the time I get back. He did not have all of his stuff out. I'm sitting here with a mask on my face trying to get all my stuff out. And he shows up with his girlfriend there. Yeah, just crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
I know. And there's so much more like depth to this. So then we move all of our stuff out of our apartment. I had to move in with my business partner's family for a week. Slept on her floor on my mattress in her playroom. And I'm just miserable at this point. And then it's like, let's see, January 2nd, I get a freaking 24-hour stomach bug.
Oh my gosh.
Flu.
It's like the plagues.
Literally, I'm like, the whole world is falling apart. What? Jesus, what is happening to me? Like, my heart is broken. My businesses have failed at this point. I'm running out of money. I don't even have my dog. My dog is being boarded for like 19 days at this point. And now I have the stomach bug. Like, what is happening? And I'm like desperate to find my own place because her family had 4 children. Like, I had to get out of there. And it's all the Lord's timing because I found my apartment literally like 6 days after. And that is fast to find an apartment and to move in and everything. And so, it was January 6th. I got the keys to my apartment and I had to shoot a wedding that day.
Wow.
Jeez.
You go from your life's falling apart. You have no money. All of your clothes are in trash bags at this point. You just got your apartment. And now you have to be happy for somebody else to shoot a wedding. Like, it was so hard. And like, truly, I was just relying on the Lord to just get me through this. And I look back at those content from that day. I'm like, wow, I looked like trash. But I had like one outfit to even pull from. It was just funny. So then for the first time, I am living on my own. I went from living at my mom's house to being married. And I had never had a season of singleness. We started dating, if you want to call it dating, since I was like 12.
Wow.
I was with this guy for 12 years nearly. It was hard. I really had to figure out who Moriah is for the very first time in my life, apart from being in a relationship. And so my business partner at the time decided, hey, I'm just going to give you space. You are clearly going through a lot. You need time and you need space to just adjust. And so with that adjustment time and with that space, I started to really think clearly and really get close to the Lord because I'm going to church at this point. I'm really digging deep. And I was like, I don't think that this is super healthy for me. And I don't think I want to be associated in this realm anymore. I don't think that this is for me. And so we parted ways. It was not taken very well on her part. She essentially blocked me from any source of her life. She said, if you don't want me in your life, then you can't have my kids in your life. And that was extremely hard to go from raising these children practically to having no contact with them at all. And so that was just one more thing added on to the pot, because at this point, I'm so broke from everything that I'm having to pay for. I had to borrow money for the first time in my life from my mom. Now I have literally no family at all, family or friends in Jacksonville, and I'm starting from scratch. And so I knew that I needed to build my community around me. I needed to get involved in a disciple group. And so that's what I did. And surely and slowly, people started reaching out to me. They were like, hey, I'm realizing that you're going through something. Would love to go get coffee with you. Let's grab lunch. And just in the Lord's kindness, he starts to just surround me with people in my life that love the Lord and know the Lord and are uplifting me. And it is just beautiful because a lot of my friends now are people that I met when we were running the boutique. They had come in our doors, and that's how we just connected on, oh, you're a photographer? I'm a photographer too. And a lot of those friends are solid people that I never knew were going to be friends, or I never knew I was going to meet them in this capacity. And so it really is cool to see the Lord is always taking care of you in whatever season you're in, whether you think so or not. Just in this last, I've been divorced for 15, 16, 17 months or so, whatever that comes out to. And I can truly say I've never walked in so much freedom and so much joy. And I love my life. I love my life so much. And I know we're like supposed to die for our life. I'm like, I love this. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's the joy of the Lord.
Yes.
Yes. And it's really become so clear just what the Lord did for me, just how much he truly loves me, and what an abundant life looks like, because I feel like there's a heaven line and then there's an abundant life line. And I truly feel like for the first time going through this crazy season truly got me to the abundant life. And I'm so thankful for that. I remember, and I really feel like letting go of a lot of stuff, because I went through a crap ton. I don't know how I survived. And I remember being in prayer one time, and I think this was like March or April or so last year. And I remember asking the Lord, how do I just let go of this? Because I don't want to harbor any resentment. I don't want to harbor ill feelings towards anybody, even towards, like, how do you start to go through forgiving somebody who blocked you out of your life, forgiving somebody who cheated on you 6 times? Like, where do you even start with that, Lord? He gave me this vision. I'm sitting on my couch. He gives me this vision of me kneeling down in the ground, in the gravel, at the foot of the cross, and he's on the cross. I did that to him. I pierced his wrist. I put the crown on his head. I did that to him. And he didn't just do that for me. He did that instead of me.
Yeah.
And then I looked to the side of me, and my ex-husband is kneeling down next to me. And I look to the other side, and it's his girlfriend kneeling to the other side of me. And then it's my ex-business partner. And it's all the people that hurt me. And that really made it real to me that Jesus, I'm no better than anybody else.
Right.
And their sin is not greater than mine. Jesus did that for me and for them. And that kickstarted my forgiveness journey. And I feel like I just started to see so clear of his goodness and how much these people also deserve a spot in the kingdom. What's going to stop us to continuing to reach out? And people think I'm crazy for this. They're like, why do you continue to invite your ex-husband to church? And I'm like, listen, how lost is too lost?
Yeah.
I remember we had, at 1122, we have something called Saturated. It's basically like a youth camp, but for adults, because at youth camp, you get like this whole entire week where you just like dive deep with the Lord, and you hear a bunch of speakers and you get fired up, and then you're like good for the rest of the year. But we don't have anything like that for adults. And so 1122 hosts Saturated every single year. It's in a free event. It goes on for 5 days. We have new speakers. It's super awesome. And so Pastor Joby said, you better bring your one more. And so our one mores are people that, there's always spot for one more in the kingdom. And so he was like, you better bring your one more for Sunday service. He's like, I'm going to lay it down for them. I was like, okay, who am I going to bring? Like my friend over here, my neighbor over here, like who am I going to bring? And the Lord's like, you're going to bring your ex-husband.
Wow.
Or you're going to invite your ex-husband. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
Okay, so I invited him, let's see, Friday night probably. Didn't hear anything from him, which I didn't expect to. And then I was like, last chance, Saturday night, we're going to invite him for Sunday morning. I was dating somebody at the time, and I didn't have access to my ex-husband's Instagram or socials or anything at this point. And so the person I was dating at the time, he was like, hey, what was your set list today? And I was like, that's a weird question. Why? He goes, I think he went to church. And I was like, what?
Wow.
Okay. And so, being the detective person that I am, I'm like double checking this picture that he had posted and all these things. And I'm like, this is an answered prayer. So I'm like, that just kickstarted things. But I don't think he had been back since.
Mm-hmm.
And he was with his girlfriend still. And I just knew in my heart, like, as long as they were together, I don't think that he would be truly free to go where he wanted or do what he wanted, and really just to have a clear mind to seek the Lord. And so persistently since September, I have continued to invite him to church. I told you ladies this past weekend had been some developments, and I was Saturday night this weekend, I was like, we're just going to invite him again. And so I did. And I think he's come to the point that he's like, okay, yeah, I'll go.
Wow.
And he said originally, he was like, I don't want to go because I don't want to see you.
Mm.
And I even told him, I was like, if I see you, I will dodge if you want me to. I was like, I sit on the left side, you can sit on the right side. It seats 3,000 people. Like, I doubt that we're going to see each other, but you never know. I will just dodge. And he said, you don't have to dodge. And I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
We're getting somewhere. And so that is just a huge, huge stepping stone. And I can't tell you how many tears that I've cried for this man to just know Jesus.
Wow.
And people say, like, Moriah, you're crazy. Moriah, you're too soft. Moriah, like, why do you keep doing that and letting your guard down? He just made his bed. He needs to lie in it. And I said, who else is going to stand in the gap for this man? Who else? And if it has to be me, like, sure, I will pay the price of a text message.
Yeah.
But Jesus paid this price for us. Who am I to not just give up this little tiny bit of effort to have one more seat in the kingdom?
Right.
No,
that's awesome.
So that's like my current developments right now. If you ladies want to pray for that, we're going to get him there.
No, we for sure will. Yeah, no, throughout your whole story too, and like what you've been kind of talking about, the overall thing that I feel like I'm getting is that your story is so filled with humility. And I think that that's so beautiful. Like when you were talking about how, you kind of were just going through this season of like taking hit after hit after hit. And you're just like, what is going on? And then for God to give you such a beautiful vision, like anything to do with the crucifixion just gets me emotional most of the time. Like I'm not crying right now, don't worry. But whenever you had like told us that, I was like, wow, like this is beautiful. And it is such an image of forgiveness and how God intends it to be. Like we take ourselves out of the space and look around. Him to like kind of position you to be able to understand how to forgive and be actively trying to do that. And then in your humility that he has already conditioned you to know and understand, he's saying, now go to the man that has broken your heart, that has made you, as the world would deem, like look like a fool, right? Like, I mean, I also have been cheated on and I felt humiliated, and now you're sitting here saying like, I'm going to still invite him to church because, at the end of the day, like he is a son of God and this is what I'm called to do. We're called to love each other, And so that's just your whole story within that is so, because humility is overlooked, I feel like. And when you have that, it's like, oh my gosh, you have a huge piece of God inside of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It's very noble to be able to forgive. And I think many of us are still trying to master how to and what that looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And I don't think before this season I would have been able to tell you how. Mm-hmm. And people ask me that all the time. And I just tell them the story. I was like, I don't know. This is what the Lord did for me. Like, maybe this will touch you too, because it's an ongoing ongoing process. And like, even I know women in their 40s, 50s that still struggle with it from 20 years ago. And you're probably just going to continually have to lay it at the Lord's feet. But that's what he's called us to do, for sure.
Yeah. I know I struggle with that. I was talking to a friend today actually about forgiveness, and very much just that in the space of how it's one thing to forgive somebody that will receive your forgiveness, but how do you forgive somebody that doesn't, one, think they need the forgiveness, and two, doesn't accept your forgiveness? You know, like, how do you keep actively every day for yourself telling yourself, like, I forgive you even if you don't accept it, even if you don't think you should have it or, you know, need it?
Yeah. Well, when I started really digging deep to what the Lord asked for me, I remember him telling me, we are gonna start healing every single part of your heart. And I was like, okay, that looked like repairing friendships that went sour because of my incapability of having conversations or having boundaries. That looked like forgiving my ex-husband. That looked like learning how to pray for people that hurt me and asking the Lord to bless them. And I feel like asking blessings for the people that are able to receive your forgiveness is so much easier than the people that you're never going to look in the eye and be able to have a conversation with them or have them receive it. Because for me, it was easy to ask or to pray for my ex-husband, but it actually got pretty hard to pray for his girlfriend at that point. And so just knowing that I would probably never look at her and have a conversation, and she would probably never receive it or even understand what she did wrong. And those are a lot of assumptions, and I shouldn't assume, but I feel like the chances of that are probably slim. But that really kickstarted for me. It's like, can you do that? Can you have that character? Because that's the character that I have, was what the Lord was saying. And so that was a big journey too. And that was just as of like a few months ago. But I was praying, you were talking about humility. Just in prayer today, my ex-husband, we have been talking because I invited him to church, and I'm really just trying to let him know that I care because God cares. And if nobody else cares in your life, I want to know how your job's doing. I want to know how school's doing. I want to know, you know, how can I pray for you? He said, hey, I've been avoiding this conversation, but I would really love to see the dog again. And he's like, but I know that that's going to be hard. It's hard for me to even think about it because it hurts to think about like seeing you and seeing the dog and all the things. And my fleshly thought was like, heck no. But then just praying about it, if that's what it takes to have a sit down conversation to share the love of God that he has not been getting for the last however much time, and then I will do that. And I started thinking, like, it takes humility for him to sit face to face with me, somebody that he knows that he hurt. And I could imagine that would be hard.
Yeah. I
know that I've repaired friendships with people and sitting face to face with them and saying, I'm sorry. I know what I did to you, and I know that that wasn't fair, and I know that that hurt. That has to be in his heart because I know, and that's just what the Lord's telling me right now. So that has to take humility. And so I actually started reading Proverbs yesterday, and Proverbs 3, I think it's 34. I started reading 3 today, and it says, he will mock the proud mockers, but he will give grace to the humble. And automatically the Lord was like, it takes humility for him to be here, and you are going to deliver my grace to him. And I was like, okay, Lord. Okay. And it's even more special too, because when we were dating, we were trying to decipher if we were supposed to get married or not. And we both took some time to like pray about it and came back, and we both had there's 2 verses in the Bible that say, and I will give grace to the humble. And that is one of them in James 5 something, I think, is grace to the humble. And so that was like our my middle name is Grace, and he has a tattoo about humility.
Wow.
And so that was kind of like our sign. Yes. And so I don't know if you've caught on, but my business name is Humble and Grace Photography.
Oh my gosh.
So that Bible verse has so much depth to it. And so when I just randomly read that today, I was like, Lord, okay, he needs this grace right now, and he needs to be humble right now. And so I don't know everything the Lord is doing right now in his heart, but he's doing something. He told me the other day, he's like, I'm up to something.
Yeah. Wow.
I was like, I trust you, Lord, with everything that you're doing. That's just really been on my heart recently, for sure.
So Dom and I, before we had called you, we were having a conversation kind of just dissecting God and his goodness and trying, like, I mean, you know, you can make yourself red in the face trying to understand God because we just simply cannot. But we were talking kind of about just being human and then also loving God in such a spiritual way and wanting to follow him so intently. And like, where is that line between like, I'm human and I'm gonna mess up, but God is so gracious and he loves us so much. And I just think that while you're even talking about this, obviously in the Christian community or religious community, whatever, divorce is obviously not something that we like look at and idolize, you know? However, I think in just talking about this and like walking in humility, it's making me think of control. And I think that, so like Dom and I's conversation was very much like, even through our sin, God uses the broken to glorify him and give grace and all the things. But so I think like as much as we can try to control being in a relationship, we can also control how it ends and like not wanting to end a divorce, like you hold on so tightly to something that God was like, this was never for you. Let it go so I can use it. And I'm just kind of seeing that as we're talking and like listening to your story. It's like, yes, there's such a negative connotation, but at the same time, God uses everything and there is such goodness. And to hold on to a marriage that isn't filled with God, there's no love at the center. Our God is a good God and he does love us so much and he wants what's best for us. And like, if this is what happened and like your husband did do this to you, then that it actually is biblical, that is the ground for termination of a marriage. You've tried everything and, you know, God is saying like, if you won't let him go because he's not right for you, maybe like he allowed a situation to happen so he could come back into control and say like, you were never meant to be in this space, but I will use this for you to still like disciple him, you know, that connection you have.
I keep thinking about the Bible verse that says, and some people misquote it and they say what the enemy intended for evil, the Lord uses for good. And what it actually says, the Lord intended for good. And it just like flips the script when you think that was his intention the whole time. And it was never God caused this sin to happen, but it was, hey, I'm intending for my glory to be shown at the end of this. Now and forever. Like, this is how it's going to happen. And so when I tell people that I'm divorced, automatically they say, oh, I'm so sorry. And half the time I say, I'm not. Like, I'm really not. And it's not because, and some people will say, oh, congratulations. But it's not because I'm sad or because I didn't like the man. Like, that's not why I'm not sorry. It's because I would not have gotten to this depth of faith and walk with the Lord had I not hit rock bottom. And rock bottom was giving up my control and everything that I was white knuckling for so long, trying to control my marriage, control my success, control my finances, control my happiness and what I do with my time. And I was chasing and trying to fulfill it with everything else other than just allowing the Lord to do what he wanted and asking him to come into it, because he is going to be where he's wanted, and he was not wanted in my life at that point. And so I was really suffering from it. And it wasn't until I let go and I said, I have no more to give at this point. And you were it's on you, Lord. Like, I trust you. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. I just think there's something to say about your spirit, because to even start a business is very, very hard. To dish out that amount of money to start with the business partner is a lot. And then I just love because you're not afraid of failure. Like, you did that with like full ambition, full like, let's get this on the road, let's go. And even through that, even though all of them failed, that friendship failed, the business partner failed, the marriage failed, the most beautiful thing to come from it is like the treasure of your soul now. You can sit here and be like, I still forgave him. And to be honest, if I were in your shoes, I don't even think I would be that gracious. I would still be so angry. That is very hard, but God has refined you so much that you can sit there and forgive and still invite this man to church. Like that is the most beautiful thing I've heard. Like truly, because I'm just sitting here like, man, I could never. Like I don't know if my soul is there yet, but that is the right thing to do. That is what we are called to do as Christians. But I'm like, man, like that's hard. That's very hard. And to like live out your life now knowing like you can still show him love in his brokenness and his failure is just the most beautiful thing you could ever do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. You guys will laugh at this. I have a friend who has been going to church with me, and she's so sweet, new in her faith, new in her walk, and she is just on fire for the Lord. And so she asked me, she was like, what are we giving up for Lent? And I was like, oh, okay. I've not done Lent in a long time, but sure, let's do it. And so I have been doing no secular music, which I wasn't doing a whole lot before, and then no TV. So it's been a lot of podcasts for me and Christian podcasts. So that's been awesome. And then I gave up my personal Instagram for a while. And so already, like, Jesus is so funny. Okay. Day 2 of Lent. I'm just going to like wrap myself out here. I have a routine in the morning, get up, walk the dog, put on my Spotify worship music in the morning on my TV, make my breakfast, sit with the Lord, do all that. So day 2 of Lent, my Spotify Premium, which is on a duo account that I have been letting my ex-husband pay for because he hasn't realized it this whole time. My premium account for the first time in like 15 months started to have ads. And I was like, what is happening here? Instantly, I heard the Lord say, we are refining the ugly parts of your heart during this Lent season that you didn't even know existed. And I was like, oh my gosh, Jesus, I got to give up my free Spotify. What? And when I tell people this story, they're like, just let him pay for it. He didn't realize it anyways. And I was like, that is not right. You know, deep down, that's not right. I should have said something when we first got divorced, like, hey, by the way, we're still on the same account. Maybe you want to do something about it. But no, I didn't. I just let him pay for it. And so I texted him and I was like, hey, I think we're still on the same account. And he was like, are you telling me that I've been paying for your Spotify this whole time? And I was like, I probably shouldn't have said this, but I said, don't get your panties in a twist. I'll take care of it. And that was pretty much end of the story. He's not done anything about it, but you know, I digress. But as soon as I texted him about it, my ads stopped.
Wow, weird.
Seriously, it's like Jesus was straight up giving me ads on my premium account so that I would make it right. And I would just be, all the ugly parts of my heart would start to look more and more like Jesus. That's just a funny story for you.
Yeah, that's wild. He does be messing around like that.
Mm-hmm. I was literally laughing. I was like, Lord, you're so funny. Thank you.
I think it's so funny too. Yeah, like when he goes in and kind of, refines things you weren't even praying about or you didn't even think about, you know? And it's like, oh, he changed that about me and I didn't even ask.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, I feel convicted now because I have my ex-boyfriends.
Literally, he's using you for Dom now.
I'm like, I have their Hulu, I have their Netflix, still holding on for free. Heart's not in the right place.
It's one thing, listen, it's one thing if they're like fine with it. It's another thing to just do it behind their back because your intentions are, well, he can do it because he cheated on me. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, 100%.
So that's unforgiveness. That's me getting my revenge and not letting God have his day.
Like, no one needs to know. Yes. I'm still watching his, junkie TV on his Hulu. Oh my gosh.
So crazy.
Well, speaking on forgiveness, I'm curious, have you forgiven your business partner given that she like cut you off cold turkey?
Honestly, there was a sense of me that found it a lot harder to forgive her than it was my ex-husband. And I don't know why that is, other than I probably put her on a pedestal more than I did my marriage and like looked to her to basically fix everything. And that was never where she was meant to be. And that was all of my doing. But it was definitely a hard process. And it's also like, I went from taking care of these children and now like they were a big part of my life, and my camera roll is still full of them. And just going from having nothing now, it is really hard. But no, it was definitely a harder process. But once I started to like continually remind myself of that picture that the Lord gave me and picture her down the road, down the line here, it gets easier. But I will say, like, that's one of the things that just the Lord has taken me on, and that's a continuous journey and choice to do. But yeah, it's definitely, I feel like praying for people makes it easier. Once you like get that in your heart, make it head knowledge to heart knowledge, like speak the words out loud. They're powerful. Once you hear it. Yeah, for sure.
If you could go back and change anything about that friendship, or maybe what business advice, like before maybe even going into business with a friend, would you reconsider before you would do that?
I have told myself I will never get into business with anyone ever again.
Yeah.
When I started my business, my husband wasn't even on it, my business. It was just me. And honestly, I think that's the Lord's protection. But it gets really fishy. And she would basically say that she was like an older sister to me. It really checks down to, is the Lord in your life as closely as he should be before making these decisions? Is he close in their life too? Because once that starts to get out of whack, then it's all going to come tumbling down. But I can for sure say that I was out of whack and the Lord was not first in that season. And then I basically got in business with somebody, and that was never, the Lord will never give you peace in places that was never meant for you. And that was never meant for me. I was never meant to be a nanny to 4 kids that were not mine and basically a third parent to these people. I was never meant to almost go in debt and have my marriage failing at the back end. And a lot of those choices were mine, and I did not set boundaries. But had I been pursuing the Lord, I probably would have been listening to the Holy Spirit in the back of my head saying, hey, slow down. Like, where's your priorities right now? So I think just make sure you know who is your God, and is that coming first?
Yeah. I think that just speaks so much to community and having the godly friendships versus the worldly friendships, because you just saying that, it takes me back to a time in my life when I was not a believer yet, and I had a best friend. Like, she was my ride or die for 5 solid years. We were thick as thieves, and her world started falling apart by her own hand. She was not doing great things, but I loved her so dearly. And I was more than willing to accept her for who she was and have her back and all of the things. And it ended up, she turned it on me. It was this whole thing, and it became my fault basically when I had nothing to do with it. And I just remember sitting there feeling so defeated and lost. And I was just like, wait a second, like, she was going to be the maid of honor in my wedding. Like, she knows everything about me. It's this weird thing with women. And obviously I speak to women because I am one, and I don't know how men communicate, but like, we create this bond that is almost like blood. And once you're in my corner, you're not leaving, and I will ride so hard for you. And then you find out, like, oh, God wasn't ever in this. God wasn't in either of us. Like, we were just worldly friends doing worldly things. And when worse came to worse, she turned on me. And that was heartbreaking. And it took me a long time to really trust women again and open up. And now I can say, thankfully, God has graciously put people in my life that I love so dearly. And like, I know, I pray won't leave me.
Yeah.
But
well, there were so many layers of toxicity in our relationship, and it was because it had started as a work partnership. There's already like transactional relationship to start off of, and then it started into, okay, now we're kind of coming close and we're becoming close and having fun doing these business things. And now I'm going to start watching your kids because you're going back to work. And then it turns back into this transactional thing. But then you stop paying me for babysitting. And so now it's just, I'm doing this as a family friend at this point. And then it quickly turns into, I'm spending all of my time at your house with your family, and I have no time for anybody.
Right.
And I remember multiple times she would say, I don't need anybody else, just Moriah and my family. And as in her, like, immediate, her kids and her husband. And I was like, that sounds terrible.
Right.
Like, I miss all of my friends. And then I had moved to Florida and I had nobody. I'm missing all the people that I used to have in my life. I'm missing all the church people that I used to have in my life. And I wasn't making new friends because I was working all the time. And it really, without me getting back into church, I knew in my spirit and in my heart, something was wrong and I was missing community. And I started to grow resentful even before the Lord cleared up my eyes, and cleared up my heart, because I would watch her children all day while she was working and doing sales calls and doing all the meetings. And then she would come home at 9 p.m. and then she would want to talk because I was her friend. And I'm like, I want to go and see my husband, see my family, because I haven't seen him since 7 this morning. And the resentment really started to grow. And so that's probably another reason why for the forgiveness journey was so hard, because it wasn't just a one-time situation. It was a growing thing of 3.5 years that I had to let go, and I'm still letting go.
Resentment's real. I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, so I was out there resenting everybody. I was like, I'm doing everything for y'all and you don't even care. But we have since, the Lord has definitely softened me in that. But yeah, like, I think that is a very good point. It's easy for somebody to, do an offense against you and you are able to forgive them in that moment. But it's when you've stayed silent almost or pushed it under the rug, and it's like this boiling feeling of like this resentment, like, okay, I love you. I'm going to let this one slide. Okay, I love you. I'm going to let that one slide. And it's just like this pile up. And once you've built that mountain of resentment, man, forgiveness just stays in that cave behind it. It's like, I don't need to come out. Like, we got to work through all this resentment first. And that's a you thing. And that's what's crazy, is when you have to turn around and it's like, oh, I just need to forgive this person. They hurt me. And then you have a mountain of your own resentment to climb over. And God's like, oh, no. We have to now fix your heart. And I'm like, no. I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. It's definitely taught me a lot about boundaries too. And I don't know if you guys listen to Lisa TerKeurst.
I've read a few of her books.
So fun fact, Lisa TerKeurst lives half the time in Ponte Vedra, so she attends 1122. So that's really cool.
Oh, that is cool.
But she speaks, she's going to speak at our women's conference next weekend or this weekend, and then at Saturated. So that's really cool. She talks a lot about godly boundaries and how it was God's idea to have a boundary, because people think like putting a boundary up means like you are trying to control the other person to not do something. But like in Genesis, the Lord separated the heavens and the earth, the skies and the waters. Like all of the things had separation for their designed purpose. And it's the same for us. Like there was a healthy boundary when God said, you can eat from everything, just not this tree. It was God's idea for boundaries. And so I was very aware. I had no healthy boundaries in that relationship at all. Going forward, it's definitely been a challenge. Finding healthy boundaries and making friends as an adult is hard. And then making boundaries is hard too, when you're like not a big confrontational person. And so it's definitely on a journey. But yes, I've learned so much from my past, and the Lord uses everything and intends it for good. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool too within your story of you saying how the girls that are in your community now, or at least some of them, are people that had walked into the shop that you owned with that old business partner / friend. And that to me was just like, look at God just crafting. He used that broken piece of you, you know, like you didn't even know it was broken yet. And he was just like, I have to give her something in this, you know? And it's all too like, my brain goes to like, wow, that was for me. Like, thank you, God. But it's like, yes, as much as it was for me, it was for him to prove like I've always been there. And that's something looking back
for his glory.
Right. When you can look back and see in the mess, like he was there. And that blows my mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's like even like in the quote failure, which even it's not a failure because it's like, look at everything that's gained.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just love like, so like us going through Ecclesiastes this semester too, like everything is vanity, all of these like world, like we've exhausted the worldly check marks in every episode. We're like, don't chase after the world. Like, you know, but that's what happens. And I think that that's such a highlight of who the enemy is and like his character is that he wants you to look at your career, your marriage, your friendships and think, if you succeed in these, you're doing life right. And the Lord is saying, if you lose all of it and still love me, you're doing life right. And we just like, I just think this is so, like me and Dom geek out sometimes about this podcast because it was just truly like two besties sitting around, like, let's have fun and like do something that shows that we love the Lord. And like every time this stuff happens, like we didn't plan to do Ecclesiastes and have you on because your story aligned. But then like, here you are, the Lord set it up in a way, like I would have probably never reached out to a girl I never met, you know, like, but I was just like, I feel so pulled to you. And I just like didn't know why. And here, like, it just all ties into what we're talking about. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. Thank you for doing this because not only is it your testimony that's going to reach whoever needs to hear it. But then on top of it, it shows the Lord even just worked through this moment of us interacting. He's there. And that's so cool.
Yeah. He's so crafty. I think it's so fun to see when you do see the big picture, finally, like at the end of a season or something, it's like, wow. Like, that was pretty cool. You're doing great, Lord. Like,
hats off to you.
And thanks. And thanks for like letting me see the big picture too. Because he doesn't have to do that. Like he really doesn't, but he wants us to just be in awe of him. And so in his kindness, he shows us his goodness.
Yeah. I love that. And you can just feel your joy through like his joy through you radiating. And I just think like, even when you said, I don't have that, but I am loving my life right now. I feel that when you say that. And it's, and I like, you know, obviously I follow you and like, I see you, like you're out here on worship nights and like posting like all these things, like you love the Lord. And I think that that is even in a world that we live in today where religion, faith is a little bit, it's not hushed, like we have the freedom to talk about it, obviously, and like be proud about it, but it can be very judged and you love him and it shows and it's so great. And it's been such an honor having you on the podcast to share that. I hope more people can hear your episode and feel that and want that.
Yes. Pure joy.
Yes. I have so many people that have told me, you need to write a book, you need to have a movie, you need to have a podcast, something. So I'm like, well, I'm going to be on this one so you can listen to this one and we will see what comes of it. I have thought about maybe doing, I don't know if I could do a whole book, but I'm like maybe doing a devotional or something in the far, far future. So I don't know. I'm like, I think the Lord's up to something else over there too. So
well, especially if divorce has become such your ministry, like you could even make a devotional centered towards people going through that even.
Who knows? For sure.
It's a lot of well, thank you so much.
No, thank you. I'm seriously so excited. Everybody's so excited. My mom texted me today. She goes, where can I listen to it? I'm like, whoa, girl, slow down. Like, it's not out quite yet.
I know.
I will send it to all of my disciple group ladies are so excited. They're all going to listen to it.
You're so sweet. Yes. We're going to post about it. We're so excited.
Yes.
Yeah, seriously, thanks again. I know I'm like some random girl in Florida, but I really do feel like there's this saying that I heard one time: you still have not met all of the people that you are going to love. And I'm just like, I love y'all already.
I know,
and
yeah.
we're doing something.
No, for real. Like, you're a Bible baddie for life.
Yes. Yes.
I love it so much. I love it. Yay! Thank you guys again. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, we have one last question though.
Yeah.
Our question.
What does your heaven look like?
Okay, I was so excited because I've been thinking about this for a while because I know this is you guys' question. Okay, so I know you're like, you don't have to go super biblical.
Whatever you want.
I love being outside. I love walking. I love the breeze. I love nice weather. And when I think of like my ultimate peaceful nature setting, I think of just like grassy hills with like mountains in the distance, with like a stream running. It's spring and there's colorful wildflowers everywhere. Bees are buzzing, birds are chirping, and it's like a nice 74 and sunny. That is like my ultimate peaceful. And I don't know if it's I'm a photographer and I'm like, wow, that'd be really pretty to shoot there.
Maybe, yeah.
But that's like my ultimate, if somebody's like, close your eyes and just think of nothing, like that's where I want to be. And I think that's where I would be like most at peace. And that's what I picture heaven like. It's funny. I joke around that I don't want a wedding ever again because A, I'm in the industry, B, I've already done it before, but I'm like, I would happily just find a place like that. I don't know where it exists. I don't know. But I would find that place and I would go elope and get married there. And then we would just have a really awesome vacation.
Heck yeah.
That
sounds, what I want. Yeah.
Sounds perfect to me.
Yeah. But in the meantime, that's what my heaven looks like.
I love that.
Man.
Okay, cool. Well, if that's it, I will pray us out if you're good with that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for being here today and just setting this up in your gracious plan. I just geek out on this and I'm just so thankful that you have connected our paths with such a faithful and loyal servant of yours. God, we just pray over Moriah that you just keep pushing her into humility and walking her through grace, and that you just allow her to just pour your joy out on everyone that she meets, Lord. That's just been such an exciting characteristic of her. And we're so happy to also broadcast that and share that with more people. And God, we just pray over her ex-husband and her old business partner that you can just continue to soften their hearts and work in them, and that she can just be a beacon of light, and that we just all pray for our own forgiveness, Lord, that you can just continue to help everyone that needs that, because we all struggle, and just continue to soften our hearts and open us up to you and your goodness and your grace. And in your name, amen.
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 Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh my gosh, this was so fun.